And we are presenting these revolutions to Barbadians as one, a response to the need for transformation of this entire society and economy. We are presenting these revolutions in relation to the fact that we are in the midst of the greatest global challenge, and therefore we have to do things differently. And sir, because the aspirations of the average Barbadian are that they will have a good life and will have a better life than their parents and their foreparents. But here we are in the midst of a COVID pandemic, in the midst of economic challenges, supply chain problems, and the Ukraine war. The response of this government has been to present a budget to transform Barbados so that it is a place of promise for all Barbadians while addressing the challenges, while blunting the impact of the external shocks, as well as looking at how we can surge ahead to seize the new opportunities within the global space. So what this means, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that Barbados, as we were 5 years ago, will not be the Barbados that can take on what is in front of us, but rather we need a new attitude, we need a transformation of our people to be able to engage the revolutions and to be able to seize the opportunities which are presented to us in that global space. Within the housing revolution, you have the need for climate-resilient housing for lower-income families. So lower-income families, for once, do not have to be locked into a situation where they're always renting or where they're always scotching at a relative or a parent, but there is a hope to own your own home. We have the energy revolution to provide opportunity for Barbadian individuals and enterprises to be able to invest and to participate in any wealth creation that is going to be able to take this nation forward. We also have, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a digital revolution. And the purpose of this revolution is to be able to broaden the platform for us to engage in trade, that we can attract more businesses, that we can build out stronger enterprises, so that young people who go into our schools, who come out with an education and overcome our limitations of distance. We also were told about the food and nutrition revolution, that we need to halt the ravages of the NCDs, which has been affecting the health of our families, which has been putting stress and burden on our hospital and health sector, and which has also affected the productivity in both the public and private sectors. And what has that meant for Barbados? It means that we have been losing close to $140 million annually in much needed income that we could put to very good use if only we were able to bring the NCDs under control. And then we have the Orange Revolution, where we need to bring a culture of creativity and innovation so that we're able to increase our goods, we're able to increase our services, but more importantly, that Barbados can actually offer solutions to the world that will have global appeal, and that these are the things that will help us to increase the earnings of our enterprises and provide those much-needed jobs for our citizens. Now, sir, as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade, and the Ministry of Energy and Business Development, we have a role to play in helping Barbados make this revolution a reality. One of the things that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade is tasked with is to be able to broaden the reach and deepen the roots of the economy by creating more targeted engagement in the global space. Our job is to be able to win friends, lay a hold of allies who will be able to work with us to open up the trade space, to work in the multilateral organizations to be able to negotiate the terms and conditions for these new things which we want to bring into global trade, whether it is the cultural revolution, the digital revolution, the energy revolution. You have to have a space in which it can operate and have the rules and the terms and conditions that are conducive to allowing our small enterprises to be able to engage. And so this is what we have done. This is what we have been working on and will continue to work on. Some of the areas in which we work in order to create that space, at the CARICOM level, we work in COTED. COTED is an organ of CARICOM that allows us to deal with trade and development and economic development for our countries. And what is it we do? We work with our CARICOM partners to be able to agree on a set of terms, a set of initiatives that we believe will help us to do better in trade. So whether it's negotiating the issues pertaining to the telecom sector, whether it's about the free movement of people, the free movement of capital, whether it is, are we going to reorganize the common external tariff so that we can achieve a specific thing? And that is what is particularly taking up the attention of the Foreign Trade Division. The review and changes needed to be made to the common external tariff. And what is it we want to achieve? Right now, sir, we have close to $3 billion US worth of goods that come into our regional space from extra-regional sources. $3 billion worth of goods that are already made in CARICOM, that already meet quality standards, and that already meet the quantity to meet the demand across the region. Yet despite that, enterprises are importing close to $3 billion US, which means that that money is not going into the coffers of regional enterprises, Barbadian enterprises, to be able to safeguard jobs, to be able to grow our foreign exchange. It is a huge opportunity. And part of what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade will be working on this year is how are we going to close that gap to ensure that we create the conditions that make the goods of CARICOM more attractive, and by extension, Barbadian goods, so that the growth of our enterprises now will provide the opportunities for our university graduates, for our entrepreneurs, for our technical people. This is the job that we have set ourselves to be able to work on. And to do this, we have to work with a number of people. We have to work with UNCTAD to help us with the research and the analysis. The World Trade Organization, we've got to preserve this space. And just to explain what we do in relation to the revolutions, if you look at investment facilitation, one of the conditions that the WTO would have put before member states was that with investments, you should not ask for local content. And what does that mean? That if you're going to do a marijuana industry, if you're going to do an energy industry, you cannot put into law that 40% or 60% of the investment must be local. What Barbados, in its wisdom, did, it did not sign on to that aspect of the investment facilitation agreement, because we knew that what we wanted to be able to do was to create a space that the ordinary Barbadian, with a few dollars, a pension, maybe some assets that have been left by their family that they could convert and get some loans, that they will be able to take that and put it in to investment opportunities here in Barbados. This is the only way we're going to be able to make effective use of the housing solutions that will provide investment opportunities, the energy revolution that will provide investment opportunities, marijuana. And so we have worked as a government. As you would have listened to our colleagues, you would have heard the various things each ministry is doing to ensure that Barbadians are able to get involved in what is happening within this nation and to be a part of what is available in terms of wealth creation opportunities. One of the things that I want to draw to the attention of the Chamber, through you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to Barbadians, is that we recognize that COVID told this nation in no uncertain terms that we cannot live on tourism and financial services alone. That is going to be absolutely necessary for us to continue the diversification of the economy so that we are less vulnerable in the global economic space. I think every Barbadian has gotten that lesson, understanding that if tourism dries up, all of us suffer. And so part of what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade is working on is a commercial diplomacy network. We are in a situation where we do not have extensive finances that we can hire all the marketing companies in the world to go across the world to find those business opportunities for enterprises. But we do have ambassadorial presence. We do have staff that work in missions. And one of the initiatives that will be implemented during this year is a commercial diplomacy network where all of our staff in all of our missions will be trained in how to best promote and seize opportunities for Barbadian goods and services, and also to identify technical cooperation opportunities that will help us to be able to achieve our objectives. And so, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, our work is here to be able to support what has been placed on the table by the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East to ensure that these revolutions take place. By doing so, we are able to broaden trade, we're able to create new opportunities, and part of the work to help assist with that was the formation of our new embassies in Ghana, in Kenya, and Dubai, and we're now working on staffing them, and we are looking forward to building trade that will create opportunities for our goods. But who we are at the moment as a people is insufficient to take advantage of these opportunities. And I say this cautiously. We have the capability, but the level at which we operate both as employers, employees, as citizens, there is not sufficient engagement at the top performance level of excellence that is required to help us take these revolutions and make them our own. And why do I say this? If, for example, we are going to be able to take advantage of housing, take advantage of the opportunities for investment in energy, one of the things that we have to do is to help Barbadians to know how to save so that they can take up that housing opportunity. A person who does not save well will have a difficulty benefiting from something that really is within their grasp. If our people don't understand investment and they are afraid that in the face of banks giving them the savings because the fees being charged on their money is much more than what the interest is being offered. So what is happening is that our funds, little by little, are being eaten away. To break that requires Barbadians to be willing to take a risk in investing. But that is not our history. That is not our natural inclination. We either want to put it in the bank or put it under the bed. And this is why the work in the Ministry of Business Development now becomes critical for helping us to transition and making ourselves ready to be able to lay a hold of the opportunities. The financial literacy program that is being rolled out by the Ministry of Energy and Business Development is going to be key to helping Barbadians overcome their fear, their reluctance, their uncertainty, to be able to provide information not only about opportunities, but how to work them effectively. In terms, sir, of looking at the digital...
Honourable Member, please note that you have 5 more minutes.
Thank you. In relation to the digital revolution, It means that we have now to work with our businesses to be willing to transition onto digital platforms, to help them to identify what technology now is going to help them to be more efficient and faster. And therefore, I'm very happy to allow the Chamber to know that one of the products that the Ministry of Business Development is looking at putting out is a set of digital apps that will do two things. There's one that allows them, for example, to receive payments and take payments from people right away so that they don't handle as much cash as they used to. And then there is another one that allows them to be able to promote their business and to be able to create platforms for engagement with their customer in which they will be able to overcome the limitation of being only known in a small locale, but rather to allow Barbadians, and if we're able to get the use of that digital app to spread wider than Barbados, to have the rest of the world engage us so that they can begin to sell their goods, whoever it is, big or small, that they can actually have the opportunity to get more business. Now, one of the concerns, sir, is do we have the will as a people to make the necessary changes? I think particularly of food and nutrition, where we want to take control of the NCDs. Sir, this is going to take us as a people to build the discipline. All of the efforts of the Ministry of Agriculture under the Honourable Member for St. Philip South to be able to provide the food, to be able to allow us to reduce some of the processed foods that come into Barbados. If Barbadians do not exercise the discipline to change their eating habits, to change their exercise habits, that revolution is going to be in vain. If we are going to be able to attract businesses into Barbados, whether via the energy program, whether it's via the marijuana program, or the free zone that Barbados is looking to put out, unless we can present those potential investors with a cadre of workers who are not only knowledgeable and skilled, but who are extremely productive, if we do not make that transition, it will kill all of this hard work that we are putting in to creating the opportunities to attract those businesses. And that is why, sir, I want to point out that one of the things that must change at the level of workers, whether public or private, is the issue of absenteeism. Absenteeism costs the Barbadian economy hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Sir, even the abuse of being able to retire medically unfit, that has to be diminished because we need every able-bodied person to get up and go to work. That people, when they go to work, that they don't work until 11 or 12 and then cannot be found the rest of the day. All of these things will create a trap, will create risk for investments. And what will gradually happen, Barbados will not be able to attract high-quality investments. And what will that mean? It means that instead of presenting to the world a premier workforce capable of excellence, highly skilled, if we present one that is high cost, inefficient, then you will only attract low-paying jobs. And low-paying jobs do not match with the aspirations of Barbadians. So that's why Barbadians have to come to a new understanding of what work means and what they have to do in support of these revolutions. It also calls on enterprises, business managers, also to shake some attitudes that they too bring to the space. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you have situations where businesses do not want to expand. They just want to call out to government for help, but not bring the creativity and innovation and creating the opportunities for creativity and innovation within their space. And the end result is that they stay within the domestic space, increasing the cost of that good and service to the consumer without improving its quality or without bringing anything that brings added value or added benefit. And what this does, it weakens the capacity of our citizens to enjoy their lives, because their lives become more expensive without necessarily delivering better value and making their lives more enjoyable. And so we need a change in how people grow and develop their businesses. They need to improve their human resource management of their staff. They need to be able to motivate them, and motivating does not mean giving them everything they ask, but helping them to understand what are their best interests and making sure that those things are made available to them. Sir, we are going to need a people revolution in Barbados to be able to accompany the revolutions in energy, food and nutrition, digital, whatever revolution we bring. It must have a people revolution, and I want to appeal to every Barbadian, to every citizen. We are in this together. We can only benefit and profit if we all understand what are our responsibilities in supporting this very ambitious and forward-looking program, which has been offered to us in this budget. And I want to appeal to all the leaders across this country, whether you're in churches, whether you're in businesses, whether you're in community groups, whether you're MPs, that one of the things we have to do is to intensify our engagement with our citizens to help them to understand this new global environment, understand what is needed of them and what they can achieve, and work with those who are willing to make the changes so that Barbados can go onward and upward. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend this to the people of Barbados, and I want to thank you for your time that you've given me, for the time you've given me today, sir.
Honourable member for St. Michael South St. Trill.
I rise to lend my voice and my support to this appropriation bill, and to say that these budgetary measures are entirely appropriate. I was reflecting that unlike many of those conceptualized by the last Minister of Finance under the last Democratic Labour Party administration, these who brought permanent and in many cases poorly conceived taxes to match what should have been a temporary crisis. These measures match the severity of now. These measures match the time in which we find ourselves, and these are largely, many of them, time-bound. And I believe that the Minister of Finance, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, Honourable Prime Minister, and the economic team have been really innovative and have thought through what is required and what would be needed in order to match where we find ourselves. I think in particular with reference to the measures that address incentives for electric vehicles, I would say that perhaps one of the things the government is going to have to prepare for and contend with is the issue of the depletion of assets for vehicles that are powered by fuel, because it would seem to me that most people are going to try hurriedly over the next 24 months to get rid of those vehicles, and we have to figure out our capacity to be able to dispose of them. Similarly, I wanted to comment briefly on the pandemic levy that is attaching to corporations in certain sectors, and to note that unlike what some have observed or some have suggested, that it is a retroactive tax, it is not at all a retroactive tax. It is in fact a one-time levy that has to use some figure as a base, and that base figure has to be the earnings that were made because it is being levied on earnings that were made at a time in the past. So I don't want us to confuse issues and refer to things as retroactive taxes when in fact it is a single one-time levy that has to use some figure, it has to use some baseline, it has to make reference to some earnings, and these are earnings that accrued during the period of the pandemic. And there's much more I could say that is favorable by way of the measures that we heard in the financial statement. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, I choose to use my limited time this morning to reflect on this financial statement and these budgetary measures from a bit of a different perspective. Measures are fine and measures are necessary. And they show or not show the ingenuity of a Minister of Finance or an economic team, as many of these measures have done. They have shown a certain level of ingenuity that I dare say we have not seen in economic teams or certainly in the Ministry of Finance in the previous decade before 2018. But measures, sir, have to be undergirded by an economic structure, an economic belly. Measures sit on top, or hopefully sit on top, of a reliable business ecosystem and a reliable system of governance. Sir, I believe I can say without fear of contradiction this morning in this honorable place that there's no one who wants the economic plan referenced by these measures to succeed more than I do. There may be people who want them to succeed as much as I do, but certainly not more than I do. But sir, I feel I have to point out that it is time for us to really demonstrate that, as we have said countless times, that we are more than a tax and spend government. We are more than a tax and spend administration. And to the extent that this is supposed to be a growth budget, the Honourable Prime Minister talked about inclusive and equitable growth. I think we also have to talk about job-led growth. To the extent that this is to be a growth budget, I believe that there is a bread and butter growth and enfranchisement agenda that we have that is lagging. When I say bread and butter, I'm talking about some of the fundamental things that we need to address, either in terms of implementation, in terms of legacy issues that we met, that we have to address, and in terms of the enfranchisement agenda that we have mentioned that we have to catch up with. The first of these has to do with simple implementation and the business environment. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the audacity of these measures presumes an implementation capacity in our government that I believe bears some consideration. And I use audacity as a positive word, is a word I like very much. These measures contain serious audacity, and I would expect nothing less from the Honourable Prime Minister and the team. But it requires us, therefore, to go beyond the passing of new transformational legislation and engineer our departments of government to be able to execute according to that legislation, and quite frankly, to be able to execute according to a common sense approach to doing business, and an environment where, sir, you will not always be able to find a critical mass of skills today, even as you are training for tomorrow. And in many cases, in order to fill that capacity gap, it means that we have to, understanding that we won't be able to hire staff and hire more skills or even find more skills, to be quite frank, that we want. So to show you what I mean, sir, let's take some examples from the 7-point medium-term transformation framework that was presented. And I start with the housing revolution. Those lands have to be, a planning and development department then has to issue planning permissions for each of these developments. And I can only hope, member for Christchurch West, I can only hope that there are going to be pre-agreed templates for what will be approved under this housing revolution to the extent possible. And the government will not have each developer or each state agency submit applications and wait for comments from 12 or 14 or 16 agencies before they can proceed. Roads and other infrastructure have to be built. Water has to be piped. Sir, in our doing business subcommittee that I helped to lead when I was a part of this government, even though it was not among the original reforms, one of the things we discovered in our meetings in that doing business subcommittee of cabinet and the doing business private sector committee was that getting water to new builds was in some cases taking up to 2 years, sometimes more. So it calls then, sir, for these bread and butter issues, implementation and coordination, and this unsexy snagging of process and execution that, if not done right, could fell an empire, sir. The capacity has to match the audacity. And then there are the bread and butter legacy issues. We are building 10,000 homes, we say, but my people in Beals Gap, in Warner's Gap, in Bannister Land, in Delamere Land, in Carrington Village want to know what is the status of the transfer of title on the tenantry lands that they occupy. They want to know when is the government going to address the legacy issues in the housing sector as it seeks to embark on a housing revolution. I was advised some time ago that at the very least, the transfers that were before the relevant department, that were approved before the relevant department, amounted only to $4 million. And I would like to suggest, and I know that is not the full amount, that is only perhaps what is currently before that department, but I would like to suggest that we start there, because we would be enfranchising one part of the population and leaving marginalized another part that has been marginalized for many years. Another, sir, has to do with facilitating access to capital. That was number 4 among the 7 medium-term targets. Facilitating access to capital and facilities for small business and vending, and these things are important. But I am concerned about what are our new models for financing innovation. I am concerned that we are yet to make fully transparent a fiscal incentives framework that would make all business more automatic. I am concerned, sir, that some of the instruments of enfranchisement that we speak about have not been fully conceptualized and have not fully come to fruition, and I'll come to that in a moment. And I'm concerned, sir, and I caution that if we introduce special economic zones in this country with special allowances for doing business on the inside of those zones, while these implementation issues persist for the rest of us on the outside, we run the risk of creating 2 Barbaduses. This country is small enough to fix it for everyone. And sir, then there is the enfranchisement agenda for growth. The member for St. Philip South made a stellar presentation in this chamber yesterday, and I take this time to congratulate him. It might be lie or respective ages, but I have to confess that I do feel quite proud of him. I expressed this to him. And the only thing I would highlight, and it has been a bugbear of mine keeping me up at night, is that even while the member for St. Peter and I talked all the time over the last 4 years about the issue of food and nutrition security. And nutrition security is something that I've highlighted for many years, and I'm finally happy to see it come into the nomenclature and the lexicon of the ministry. But it is actually food and nutrition security, and not nutritional security, because the security is not nourishing. It does not give us nourishment. So remember for Sir Michael South, who's looking at me, will forgive me for being a little bit pedantic, but it bothers me to no end, and it should in fact be the Ministry of perhaps the Ministry of Food and Nutrition Security. That's my linguistics training, sir, that is getting in the way. Sir, Buju had a song that the member for St. Michael South and Southeast and several of us from that generation would remember well. I will not call the name of it. The first word starts with S, and the second word is persecution. But I will quote from it because we've sang these lyrics all the time. And Buju said, if I remember for Michael South, I might sing it, but I don't think that's very parliamentary. Well, the topic in all of them conference hall is to persecute the weed from existence overall. Sir, when it comes to the medicinal cannabis sector, I similarly see this as an enfranchisement agenda that is lagging. And this is not at all, and I made a disclaimer earlier, this is not at all to minimize the tremendous gains that have been made in the agriculture sector, for which I congratulate the minister. This is not at all to do that. But we came to service with this as a flagship sector. And while we are burning fields of marijuana and publishing them and publishing the news with pride, it is a sector that feels impenetrable. The sector feels impenetrable. I do not know, and I cannot advise anyone, what is the clear and accessible process for getting involved somewhere in this sector. We have said that we are going to enfranchise the Rastafari community to the extent that they want to be involved, and I hope it is not just through bulk commodity growing. I hope it is through value added. I hope it is through being in different parts of the value chain, etc. But it does feel like some kind of strange dissonance to be showing fields of marijuana being burnt to the ground as a law enforcement response. I don't want to get in trouble with law enforcement in Barbados. Police and I get along really well. But we have to address this issue because it does seem, including to me, one of the people that occupy this honorable place, as if there is a dissonance there. The sector, are people getting licenses? People are calling me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, asking, when can I receive a license? What does it mean to be involved in this sector? How do I get access? And we cannot answer. It is a part of the bread and butter growth agenda that is lagging, and our capacity has to match our audacity in this year, 2022. We have spoken for years, sir, about unit trusts and special purpose vehicles and the role of the credit unions in people's investment and participation in the renewable energy sector and in other sectors and in tourism investment. But we need the instruments. These things are eminently doable. Where are they? And I do not say this to suggest that this government has not been working. I know this government has been working because I was a part of this government that has been working. But it is to say that we cannot really speak to a job-led, inclusive, and equitable growth if we do not once and for all create the instruments that are going to get us there. And so I want to say something as well about the health measures. These, sir, I believe, have to be taken carefully. And I believe we have to be wary of all or nothing approaches and the demonization of certain categories of food. A pear, what we call a pear, what the member for St. Michael East and the member for St. Michael South and I call a pear, the member for St. James Central might call it an avocado. But that, sir, that avocado is mostly fat. It is healthy, monounsaturated fat. It has fiber, it has magnesium, it has a lot of great things, other things, selenium, other things that highly recommend it. But it is mostly fat. And there was a time when fat, dietary fat, was the devil. And in fact, the current sugar addiction that the world suffers was created in the height of the low-fat revolution, if we recall. And that revolution was all based on lobbying by big business. Sir, jelly beans were stamped with a low-fat label and presented as health food in the height of the low-fat revolution, because big business and lobbyists wanted to use this opportunity to get their products ahead in the market. High sugar cereals were pumped up with vitamins and stamped low fat and stamped high in vitamins and minerals. High sugar cereals with Count Chocula and all these things that people eat. And they were advertised to children during early morning cartoon shows. That is what has caused us to be caught in this high sugar trap that we are caught in now, not just here, but all over the world. So I cannot object to the raising of taxes on sugary drinks. I can't object to that. It makes perfect sense. It is the right thing to do. And I hope that that includes juice, because it's not just sugary sodas or soft drinks. Sweet juice and juice drinks. And this is not to take away market share from anybody, but let's be real. As the old people say, if you say A, you go say B. But it has to go beyond that, or we are going to find ourselves in another nutrition trap. It has to be about helping to teach people what is the balance that is going to keep them healthy. And I can't object to zero rating of health foods or healthy foods. But this may be a small point for some, but I want us to tread carefully. Drinks like Ensure and Enterex and so on, sir, these have a very narrow use case. They are literally for people who need to temporarily replace their meals with liquid because they're not tolerating food, or they're for people who for some reason cannot get enough calories in a day, 1,400 or 1,600 or 1,800 or whatever your resting metabolic rate tells you you're supposed to eat. These drinks are for those people. They are meal replacements that apply in a very narrow set of circumstances. They're not in themselves healthier than other foods. Go and look at the ingredients. And in fact, if you take them as a drink with other meals, they're going to cause people to be overnourished. So let's be careful about the signals that we send. Similarly, for multivitamins. I mean, multivitamins are not going to kill you, but not everybody needs multivitamins. There was a time, sir, and before you prompt me, I will let you know that I know I have 5 minutes left. There was a time, sir, where I used to tell clients when I was a trainer in one of my many lives, and remember St. Michael South and St. Philip South claimed that they used to go to a gym that I used to teach at, but I never seen them in there yet, so I don't know how true. But there was a time when I used to tell clients that I used to train that I would rather that they get some cucumbers and some cabbage from their local farmer or grow some themselves than to spend $60 a month on a multivitamin. Most of us can get the nourishment that we need from food if we eat well. No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with zero rating multivitamins. I'm saying this. This has to be a part of a very, very comprehensive plan to address nutrition security and wellness in this country. Otherwise, we are going to find ourselves demonizing certain things, sending certain signals that give people the wrong message about how they have to manage their nutrition. The last example I will use here, sir, is the plans that I heard referenced by the Honourable Prime Minister to later apply similar taxes to high salt foods. Sir, cottage cheese is a food that is very high in sodium. And there was a time when every dietitian in the public health system in the UK and similarly here in Barbados, used to prescribe cottage cheese in meal plans for people who were trying to lose weight.
Honourable member.
So
please.
before we start slapping labels on things,
5 more minutes.
thank you, sir, and taxing high salt foods, let us fully explore and understand the combination of approaches that will work in our populations. Sir, as I said at the outset, these measures are highly appropriate for this time. And there can be several discussions that we have, and I'm sure that the minister in the Ministry of Finance and the others will continue to have with the private sector about how to apply the new freight charges, about how to apply and administer other taxes. There are all kinds of thinking, there's all kinds of thinking about how the tax should be applied on mileage on electric vehicles. And as she is wont to do, I am sure that the Minister of Finance will allow all ideas to contend, and then will govern based on the best advice. There are those who say that the threshold for the 1% levy, the income threshold is low. There's some who suggest that it should also be tiered, and so that it should not just apply as a flat rate from 75,000 up, but it should apply at different levels as you go up. But we who have been practitioners know about some of the administrative issues of making a tax too complicated. And so I am not too concerned about these details. But sir, as I said from the outset, our capacity has to match our audacity. I am cautioning us all that we start to pay attention to the details. Legislation that is transformational and that is part of a reform agenda is wonderful, is brilliant. The capacity to administer that legislation is, as they would say, a horse of an entirely different color. We need, a few weeks ago, I was quoted as saying something that we say all the time, drunk or sober, mind your business. Well, drunk or sober, we need to mind our business. We need to turn inside, look at our capacity to execute, pay attention to the details, and make sure that the things that are central to growth and expansion, job-led, inclusive, equitable growth and expansion for all in this country, we have the capacity to do, and that our capacity, sir, matches our audacity. And it is only on that basis that we are really going to take the country forward for a new frontier of growth, development, and transformation. Sir, I commend this bill to this honourable place, and I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Leader of Government.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 20 past 11.
Until 20 past? So, 11. The question is that this House be suspended until 11:20 a.m. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. This House is now suspended until 11:20 a.m.
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send forth, we humbly pray you, upon your servants who bear office in this country, the spirit of charity and justice, that we may in all things walk before you with steadfast purpose and a single heart, and faithfully serve in our several offices, through Jesus Christ our Lord. As we are in the Lenten season, we say the Collect for Lent. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, you hate nothing you have made and forgive the sins of all who are penitent. Create and make in us new and contrite hearts, that we, worthily lamenting our sins and acknowledging our wretchedness, may obtain of you, the God of all mercy, perfect remission and forgiveness, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And we sum our prayers up in the prayers our Lord himself has taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank
you. The Senate is in session.
Messages from Her Excellency the President.
I have received a message from Her Excellency the President, which reads as follows. Her Excellency the President to the Honourable the Senate. Her Excellency the President hereby informs the Honourable the Senate of the following. Section 60, Part 1 of the Constitution provides that each session of Parliament shall be held at such place and commence at such time as the President may appoint. Her Excellency hereby informs the Honourable Senate that the proclamation dated 8th day of February 2022 that Her Excellency has appointed the Worthing Corporate Centre as the place at which the session of Parliament shall continue, and by proclamation appointed the Parliament Buildings, Trafalgar Street, Bridgetown, as the place at which a session of Parliament shall be held at 10 a.m. in the morning on Monday, 14th of March, as the time at which this continued session shall commence. Dated 11th of March, 2022, and signed by Her Excellency the President. Consequential upon that, proclamation has been issued by Her Excellency the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Pinella Mason, Freedom of Barbados, Dame Grand Cross of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, Dame of St. Andrew, Queen's Counsel, Doctor of Laws, President of Barbados. A proclamation. Whereas it is provided by Section 60, Part 1 of the Constitution, that each session of Parliament shall be held at such place and commence at such time as the President may appoint. And whereas by proclamation dated 3rd of February 2022, the President appointed the Lloyd Erskine Sandyhurst Centre, 2 Mile Hill, St. Michael, as the place at which the session of Parliament commenced on the 4th day of February 2022. And whereas by proclamation dated the 8th day of February 2022, the President appointed the Worthing Corporate Centre, Worthing Christ Church, as the place that the session of Parliament shall continue. And whereas it is expedient to further continue the session of Parliament at the Parliament Buildings, Trafalgar Street, Bridgetown, with effect from Monday, the 14th day of February. Now, therefore, by virtue and in exercise of the power and authority vested in me, I, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Pinella Mason, Freedom of Barbados, Dame Grand Cross of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, Dame of St. Andrew, Queen's Counsel, Doctor of Laws, President of Barbados, do hereby appoint the Parliament Buildings, Trafalgar Street, Bridgetown, as a place at which the session of Parliament shall be held, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, as the time at which the said continuous session shall commence. given under the hand and given under my hand and the public seal of Barbados this 11th day of March 2022.
Announcements by Your Honour.
Thank you very much. With that formality from the President, it means that we're home again. I want to welcome all of you to the sit-in held at our ancestral home, and I look forward to a robust session and to the added comfort and conviviality which the enhanced and refurbished facilities will allow. Let me, at the outset, take this opportunity to thank the Management Commission of Parliament and the Clerk of Parliament and his team, as well as the project engineers, workers, and everyone who's made this possible. By way of the main announcements now, minutes I have in my possession, minutes of our meeting held on the 4th of February 2022 to be confirmed. There are, however, sorry, but from my observation, there's an error in appointment of committee of selection. The composition thereof have a few names out of joint, and the membership of the committee, which, as you know, by standing order, is the president, ex officio, and 4 senators. And those senators, obviously, His Honour Senator Reginald Farley as chair, Senator Lisa Cummins, Senator Dr. Crystal Haynes, Senator Mrs. Shanika Roberts-Odell, and Senator Kevin Boyce. That is the corrected composition of the page 3 of the minutes of that meeting.
I beg to move that the minutes be confirmed.
The question is that the minutes of our meeting of February 4th, 2022 be confirmed. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. Excuses for absence. I have an excuse from Senator Andrew Malilu, who I should let you know is a member of the International Formula One World Motorsport Federation. Yes, World Motorsport Federation. And that is an obligation which I think he's assured or holding some position there. But that's an obligation which he undertook well before joining the Senate. It isn't important for our sports administrators to represent Barbados as in other areas, and he's already outlined some dates on which he will not be able to attend Senate if they're held on those dates, and this date is one of them. And he sent his excuses. And I'm just alerting you that from time to time, his international obligations and our national responsibilities may clash.
Presentation of petitions. Presentation of papers.
Mr. President, I am commanded to lay the following documents in the Senate: Hotel and Resorts Limited Annual Report dated April 1, 2020 to 2021, and loan contract number 54390 OCBA between the Government of Barbados and the Inter-American Development Bank, specifically on the Sustainable Development Policy Program 2.
Reports from select committees. Questions to ministers. Request for leave to move the adjournment of the Senate on matters of urgent public importance. Statement by ministers or parliamentary secretaries. Personal explanations. Motions related to the business or sitting of the Senate moved by a minister. Introduction of bills.
Mr. President, thank you. Now we're actually on to the business of this honourable chamber. I'd like to welcome all of the honourable members back into the place, older, existing members, and new members, those in a new incarnation. Welcome back to, as the President termed it, our historical home here in Parliament Buildings in Trafalgar Square. It is good to be home, in the words of the Prime Minister, in the other place. I would wish to lay, Mr. President, the following bills and to move the first reading of the following bills in the Senate. The Constitution Amendment Bill 2022, the Final Appropriation Bill 2018 to 2019, the Final Appropriation Bill 2019-2020, the Final Appropriation Bill 2020-2021, as well as the first reading for the Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2022.
The question is that those bills so mentioned be read the first time. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. The things the ayes have it.
Public business?
Public business is now the order of the day.
Mr. President, I beg to move the suspension of this honourable sitting and to reconvene on Friday morning at 10 a.m. in this place, where we will begin to debate the Constitution Amendment Bill, the Appropriations Bill, and we will continue the deliberations on the Appropriations Bill on Monday and Tuesday of next week, also at 10 a.m.
The question is that this sitting be suspended until Friday, the date is Friday? The 18th of March 2022 at 10 o'clock in the morning. And remember, Honourable Senators, according to the standing orders, there's no leeway with respect to start time in relation to a suspension. You have to start promptly, and also because of the number of senators and standing orders provides for 1 hour per senator, 2 hours for the leader of the motion, 2 hours for the lead person in response, and in order to accommodate everyone, we therefore need to start on time and put in some hours in the day. So just a friendly reminder. So the question, is that the Senate be suspended until 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday, until Friday, March 18th. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. The things the ayes have it. The sitting is therefore so suspended.
How are you, darling? All right, thanks.
1. 2. 3. 3. 4. 4. 5.
This sitting is resumed. Honourable member for St. Thomas.
I beg your pardon. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate you on your level of maturity in only a day and a half or so thus far. And it means that you have got great promise in this respect.
Thank you.
I want to take this opportunity this morning to express congratulations to the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast and her team for this comprehensive and forward-looking budget that was presented only 2 days ago. In my estimation, and in that of all those persons with whom I have spoken, including the youth, they consider it to be visionary, relevant, transformative, and workable. And if it is coming out of the mouths of the youth, sir, then you know that there is a lot of promise in this budget. I want to say that sometimes, and I am not using this as a gender bias, but it is often really good when we can put a female in front to be able to carry the burdens and to be able to carry and deliver the goods. And this is the first time in our history that we would have had a female prime minister, and for me, her performance matches and surpasses that of many other of our leaders as prime ministers. And I want to say how proud I am to have been included in this dispensation, to be a part of this government that listens to the people and delivers accordingly, because at the end of the day, people matter, and politics is about people. And so I want to indicate from the outset how really happy I am with her performance and that of the government, and to truly say that she has the capacity and the ability in her creative way to make a difference in the lives of many, as I have witnessed, having worked with her for more than 7 years directly when she would have been the Minister of Education. I saw the profound performance of that Honourable Minister then, now our Prime Minister. So I say kudos to her and her team, meaning all of us as the members of Parliament and the senators and others, the persons in the other place I should say, as well as her team in the Ministry of Finance and the other ministries, to be able to send forward and to deliver a comprehensive budget of the nature of this one that we have here. And it reminds me of the comments that were made by now the deceased Kofi Annan for the United Nations, who said that Barbados was punching above its weight sometime in the mid-90s when we were the government. And I can see the transformation in this budget that will help us to punch above our weight despite the challenges that we would have faced previously, as well as knowing that this economic situation and the other maladies that impact on our lives will continue to thwart us, but we will face it and we will fix it as a government and as a people. And so I want to say how really happy I am. I want at the outset, though, to express my gratitude to the people of St. Thomas, who for the past 20 years have given me the privilege 6 consecutive times to represent their interest. I know their hardships. I know the pie is small, and to divide it up, everybody doesn't get what they desire at the same time. But I am confident that the Honourable Prime Minister and this government will deliver some of the goods to the people of St. Thomas beyond what we have dealt with or what we deal with in this budget. We know that the roads are going to come because that promise was there even before an election. And therefore, there are so many other things that I will discuss in another forum and not to take up the quality time that is here. And I pledge to them that I shall continue to be humble, committed, relevant, and to serve their interest as best as I can, now even better than before, because I've got more time and I believe I've got more energy to be able to look after their needs. But I thank them sincerely according to the old people, from the bottom of my heart. There are numerous challenges in this country, Mr. Speaker, and we know that our life is not the same. But we are not a people that will quit. Barbadians are not going to quit. Whatever is good that comes their way, they will work with, and whatever is bad, they will try to destroy it and get back to bring things to an even semblance. And so, this resilient people, I want to thank them for giving us the privilege to, for the second time, be the 30 Love team, to be able to make a difference in the lives of Barbados and not just go back to those days, those 10 years when we were crushed to the ground. It was not only the economy, it was the social components of our lives. It was to do with the structures in the communities, in our schools, and in our other various institutions. I can say today that there has been transformation in that respect, and I pray that we will continue to be able to rise to the occasion, to be able to correct some of those ills that would have impacted upon us. I'm sure that the students at the university are really glad. I'm sure that Barbadians are proud to know that they have those electric buses that were brought in from China, that their garbage is being collected in a way that is different from in those years when there were so many challenges. And there's so many other things. But let me focus, sir, directly on the strategies that have been designed for us to be able to continue to work. And it is a pity, and I'm not, according to the old people, again, flying in God's face, but it's a pity that we had those challenges over the last couple of months, indeed starting from March 2020, where we had a setback in a number of the plans that we would have had to be able to help Barbados to rise again to a level where people will be employed, they will be happy, they'll be able to build their houses, they'll be able to get the mortgages, they'll be able to send their children to school in a way that is different. But we cannot fly into God's face. And so we now know that we are turning the curve in relation to COVID, and I pray that we will, because I'm hearing of another variant now that may be impacting on other parts of the world, and I trust that it wouldn't reach us. But I'm happy to know that our children are back in school. I'm happy to know that thousands of people have returned to work, that the tourism industry is beginning to look up again. There's so many things, but without proper management by the Honourable Prime Minister and her government, I am sure that we would not have been able to reach this level of development again. And so kudos again to them. I know that the mantra of this Labour Party, it says a better life for our people. And we believe in transparency, accountability, service, and making sure that people are happy and safe. And we shall continue as a party and as a government to make sure that all those benefits trickle down into the society, to everyone, to make sure that they are stable in whatever it is they have to do to be able to live that quality life that is required. I also want to say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, that it is a time for us to not only focus on what is going to happen or what will be the benefits of this budget, but indeed for us as a people to continue to reach out and touch lives and to turn them around. We have seen people who have become so selfish. Many others who have got it all, but they just don't care if Sunday comes for the Monday. Some of them even tell you good morning. You can say it as loud as I'm speaking now. And unfortunately, that's my way of doing things, my personality. I can't speak softly, really. I can hardly whisper. But there are people who have become so haughty, so detached from what is happening. Don't look at the neighbor who has a need, who needs a bucket of water because the pipe was turned off due to COVID and no work, no money, no anything. And I want for us as a people to get back together and have that community spirit, that village life, or the heights life, to be able to reach out and touch and turn lives around. Too many of us are walking away when we see children that are getting out of hand, rather than pull them aside and say, come sweetheart, come little boy, come young man, and give them that lead and that kind of direction that will help them. And you know what, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir? 4 years later, 2 years later, perhaps 10 years later, they come back and say, sir, do you remember that day? Well, I took whatever advice you gave me, and here I am. I'm working as a porter. I'm a teacher. I'm working in the sanitation services. I'm a bus driver because of the impact and the influence that small comment or that guiding word would have helped them to be able to reach that. And so we need to thank God for the mercies thus far, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, to where we have come, and to thank him for the privileges that he has offered to us. And I'm really proud again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, to be in this distinguished chamber. It was not easy where we were before because getting there was difficult. But now that we've seen the quality work that has been offered, it says that Barbadians can do work and do it well and professionally to be able to reach the standards of any place in the international arena. And I say kudos to all those contractors, all those persons who were working to help to restore this structure that is one of the oldest in this hemisphere. Congratulations to them as well, Mr. Speaker, sir. We know that our tenure thus far has been so challenging. When we went to the IMF and we started to put our policies and programs in place, we had that vision that Barbados will start to blossom again. But because of COVID, the ashfall, so many other things happened, Tropical Storm Elsa, and so on, unemployment at a high level, people suffering. This government determined our people are suffering, but it is our duty, having been given the full mandate to look after the needs of Barbadians, we must make sure we put systems and structures in place to cushion the challenges that they have been experienced too. And so that candle of hope went out to them, where we started with the first 4,000 care packages for senior citizens, ensuring that the contents would have met their needs, especially if they had comorbidities. When we sought to come up with the idea of an adopt a family program, and business entities, private people, and others put forward funds so that Barbadians who were impoverished would still get a meal, would still be able to pay some bills, would still be able to look after their families with the $600 debit cards, that they can get some funds to hold them above board, to make communication with corporate Barbados to say, please give them a 3-month extension so that you don't cut off the light. The government agreed we're not going to take off the water. The utility companies, particularly now the telephone too, they were all a part of it, because at the end of the day, we're one people, one nation. And we can't sing it in a song or say it in our pledge and our motto, but then don't live it. And so that period, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, was such a daunting period. But this government determined that is not enough. 85,000 care packages must be prepared, because there are people out there who will never ask for anything, and they will do like how my mother taught us. Though you're poor, don't look poor. Don't ask anybody for anything, but they needed to get the food and the other resources. And this government determined Barbadians must live, Barbadians must survive, despite whatever the cause. And then, of course, vaccinations for free. My niece has gone back to Canada, and she says they have to pay $100 and some dollars in order for them to get the PCR tests and so on. Now, Barbados is still giving it for free. And I want to ask Barbadians who have not yet sought to have their vaccinations, if they do not suffer certain comorbidities, please go out and get vaccinated so that we can get our country back on an even keel and we can save lives as we have with the institution in St. Lucie, where the Harrison's Point, this institution, that was visionary too, to have it constructed in that short space of time so that Barbadians could go and get the quality health care, to be able to bring them to the level and to save lives. And sad to say, it is with deep regret that over 300 persons have passed as a result of the COVID pandemic and the devastation on their bodies. And I believe that I should take this opportunity, as I know my other honourable members would, to extend deepest sympathies to those families who would have lost loved ones, persons who were perhaps in their prime, persons who were the gems of the family, the senior citizens in particular. I want to extend sympathies to them on behalf of this government, because we understand what is going on with them. We're not feeling their pain perhaps in the same way, but it is not good to lose a loved one, whether young or middle-aged or old. And therefore, many other strategies were put in place. And it gives me the opportunity as well, sir, to extend heartfelt thanks to all frontliners, whether they were in the health system or the securities department or wherever in Barbados, because at the end of the day, without them, our numbers will not have been so low when it comes to the deaths that have occurred. We know other countries that have the billions of dollars and their numbers were up in a million, hundreds of thousands. Barbados has been able to contain it because of the visionary management of this government under the leadership of the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East. And so I commend all who have been involved in this particular exercise. We know of the plans that we had to put in place, sir, in order to be able to ensure the safety of others. And of course, the generation of employment, our youth, become very disillusioned. And I can understand it. I would have been young too many years ago. And I can understand when you can't work, even if you have qualifications or not, but you have skills and you have to remain at home and be shut away because of the contamination that will be impacting on you if you had to go around. That's why we had the lockdowns. A lot of our young people became very restless. But I thought that that novel idea of making sure that our young people get a chance to clean up the ash, that was a profound step. And they love it. And they're telling you straight, I don't want to go home. I just want to do a skill after this. Or during this period, I want to do a skill. I want to learn something new. I was hard days, I had to come out of school, especially the males. And those are the ones that we need to watch as well, because they can become very mischievous and uneasy if they're not properly and meaningfully engaged. And therefore, that program with the ASH program, and then to continue it with the cleaning and beautifying around Barbados, it is one of the best things that this government has done to be able to contain crime, violence, lawlessness, and the other things. And those young men can go, and women, because they're women in it, as you would know, sir, those young men and women take home wages every week that can hold them above water. They don't have to come and beg and ask anybody for anything. They make sure that they use their funds wisely to hold their families together, send their children to school, and to do all the other things that they want to do. Never mind, they're going to buy the bling. They're going to put the tattoos. They're going to get the eyelashes. That is how it is across the world, and the technology is adding to it anyhow. But they are serving Barbados because we need to keep Barbados clean first for Barbadians, and then for those visitors who come among us. And therefore, I want to commend that visionary step that the Honourable Prime Minister would have sought to look at. You know, sir, of the travesty with the tropical storm. Houses that were firm, strong houses, rooftops went. All kinds of challenges. This government determined we are going to work through the agencies, the Rural Development Commission, the Urban Development Commission, the Ministry of Housing, and the private sector to be able to put back roofs over people's heads. And I hope that Barbadians, those especially who are working, will take it their opportunity to insure their houses. And the insurance companies are making it so easy for us now. The insurance companies are saying you can pay yours over a 3-month period, pay in installments. As a little girl, our parents didn't have much, but they will pay a little insurance on their houses, and they had a little metal stamp that would be put on the house that whenever you walk through the village, you could tell that house was insured. If we want to be able to continue to be productive and to live good, safe lives, we have to still make our own contribution. The government cannot do it all. And therefore, I am so proud that this government undertook to repair and upgrade those houses or rebuild those houses to the satisfaction of Barbadians. Yes, people were displaced. Some of them are still in accommodation otherwise, communal and otherwise. But this government determined it must look after its people. And I feel honored to have been a part of what would have been going on in this particular respect. Now, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, sir, the Youth Advanced Corps, another dynamic step forward, carrying on from where the youth service would have been, to engage young people. I saw a young man who would have been challenges early in the week. He said, I was a part of the Advanced Corps. And we can tell that because that had to be closed off due to COVID, that he wants to go back. And there's so many others in their own small way, step by step, they can become productive citizens. Everybody cannot be a teacher or a politician or a banker or whatever. Everybody has a little niche. And therefore, I am glad that the Youth Advanced Corps has been put in place and that the facility now will be upgraded to encourage and to entertain and to make sure that those young people get the opportunity to go forward. I also want to express my gratitude, sir, to the Honourable Prime Minister and her team of planners in relation to the Gordon Cummins District Hospital in St. Thomas and the upgrades for that facility. I am saddened that previous to 1980, we as a people did not make proper plans for our seniors, and I can understand to a point why. Because we had the extended families, so that when granny or granddad or old dear aunt or the neighbor next door became aged, that somebody was there to look after them. We used to call it a stroke that they would have had or Passover. But somebody in the village looked after their needs and gave them the food, gave them the care and attention that was required. But as a society now where we have the free education, we have the free health care, our people are living longer. They are the pillars of our society. And therefore, I am so happy to know that the Gordon Cummins District Hospital that serves for persons who are so sick, there's nobody home to look after them, and so on, and they need that direct patient care from the nurses and the other professionals, that is in for an upgrade, and that the outpatients clinic where persons can go in St. Thomas instead of having to go all the way down to Warrens, not have bus fare, they can't walk, drivers are driving so badly, it's dangerous, they can go to that outpatients clinic and be able to access the necessary medication. I also want to thank this government as well for continuing to work with the Freedom Village at Rock Hall. That is a profound piece of heritage that requires the attention that was placed in it, but unfortunately, the last administration did not do as much. And of course, this government now has it at a level where I believe in the next 2 to 3 months, that is going to be another gem in Barbados for locals as well as for visitors among us, that they can go, be entertained, help to generate employment, help to be able to bring in funds into the economy that will make that turnaround in the lives of those villagers and others. I am extremely proud, sir, of having that project come nearest to fruition in this particular aspect. And I know the government has plans that work towards the Clement Payne Center and making sure that that become a part where persons in the city can go, relax, do activities and so on. Similarly, Queen's Park, that is on the list for that kind of recognition. I also want to thank this honorable Prime Minister and the government for investment in this water, building resilience. We have a community called Pori Spring, where the water never stops running. And this is about 50 years that I've been asking Water Authority after Water Authority, what can we do? The water runs incessantly every day of the year. When the pipes are off, that's where the villagers go. Dunscombe, Pori Spring, Spring Farm, Content. Sometimes even people from all as far as Westmore wants to have their vehicles and the taps are off. Those seniors and those persons, those villagers go there. And I'm happy that we're going to have to tap the water, because every time it rains, Mr. Deputy Speaker, so much water passes through St. Thomas. We get rain almost every day. And that water comes downhill, it floods all of Whole Town. Some of it goes to Bridgetown. A lot of it goes to St. Andrew. St. Andrew can't hold any more water because that's in the Scotland district and the section of St. Thomas is. But if we can dam the water, there's a business person who has dammed the water at farmers. I am happy to see that there will be measures put in place to be able to ensure that water is dammed, and that, I'm saying dammed, but I am not trained in that area, but, and it will help to mitigate some of the flooding that takes place and the erosion, and of course the impact it will have on those areas in the Scotland district if plans are not properly put in place. So I'm happy for the storm water, drainage, project that will come on board. I support it 1,000%. And I'm also very proud to know that our young people are going to get opportunities from the Barbados Vocational Training Board to further be trained. And the National Training Initiative, it does not matter who you are, show the interest, and everybody does not take it in at the same time. I've got sisters who were so bright, and I never could match them. I have my own intelligence. I have my own personality. So we can't compare people and say, well, look, it doesn't suit you because the skill you're looking at, we're not offering. We have to have that all-embracing approach to be able to make people feel they are welcome, they are respected, that they are honored for whatever little steps they can make. People make baby steps, others make giant steps, but at the end of the day, they reach the goal or the distance that they are pushing forward to. So I encourage young people again, and older ones as well, take advantage of the services that will be offered to be able to help to empower our Barbadians and to help them to be able to make a difference.
Honourable
I know,
Member,
yes, sir.
5 more minutes.
Thank you, sir. The project at Layers, sir, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast is very aware that Babies Lane and Exchange and those other communities are so near to Layers, and I'm proud to know that that kind of activity will take place there. As a little girl, we had all forms of animals in our small dwelling, in our yard. Pigs, goat, sheep, cows, ducks, you name them. Because my mother and father could not afford to feed a large family by going at the little shop in the village and buying. There was limited or no money. I am glad that this government is looking at raising a project in rearing black belly sheep to be able to let Barbadians know you can do it too, and it will help to cut down on that import bill in the same way when it comes to the planting and the growing of vegetables and fruits and other edibles, other things to be eaten. Barbadians are accustomed doing it. We had a generation in the 40s and 50s and 60s of persons who worked in the plantation with the sugar cane, but on a Saturday, they had their own little plots of land. They will go to Bridgetown and sell whatever they had. Sir, I believe you're so young, you don't even know what is Bonavis. But they grew all of that and went to town, and it was very popular. And I'm happy that this project at Lears is going to happen, and that the amounts being charged towards the water, that those will be reduced, that will be reduced as well, because we have to encourage persons to get involved. I also want, sir, as I come to the close, to indicate that we are happy about the electric vehicles and the extension of the funds from $50,000, I believe it was before, for the car loans, to $100,000, because at the end of the day, we have to look at our climatic changes. And if we are to be an integral part of it in our generation, then we will pass it on to the new generations, that they must understand that the fuel and whatever else will have a devastating impact on our soils, our foods, and whatever it is that we choose to grow. I spoke with a 16-year-old this morning, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and he said to me, please do not forget to tell them that the zero-rated items is a boss move. And I said, boss move how? Because senior citizens who cannot help themselves have to wear Pampers, babies, and he identifies so many other feminine things as well. He identifies so many areas. He said the people of Barbados must know that that is a boss stroke by the government to be able to make the difference. And out of it, he also talked about a cannery, where we need to develop a cannery if we're going to be doing all the planting at all the various places across Barbados under the Ministry of Agriculture. At some point in time in our history, we need to get a cannery, because we're buying things from other countries in the Caribbean. We're talking about minimizing or limiting the, reducing, let me say it that way, our food import bill. But why, when we have gluts, must some farmers plow up what they have in the land, rather than give it to the people in communities, the district hospital, the schools, other institutions that they can use them? If we have a cannery, we can can it and we can export as well. And so the effort with Guyana through the Honourable Minister and his team from the Ministry of Agriculture, that too is visionary, and it can take us miles ahead in what we do and say. And so the people of St. Thomas are happy, and the fact that the gasoline will be capped at 47 cents per litre for the 6 months, Bajans have to really plan strategically. Because we want to go to the supermarket and we go to pick up a fuel and say, "Hi, I forgot to buy this, I forgot to get," rather than plan purposefully. And we use the diesel, and we use the gasoline and other fuels as well. And then that leads to challenges. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to thank all of you for the privilege to be a part of this distinguished chamber and to play my part. And the other aspects that I have not mentioned, I shall be trumpeting them in the communities where I go, despite whatever parish I am in. And I want to say, sir, as I close, that the self-sufficiency in food production and manufacturing, that is extremely critical. And like Jimmy Cliff said, better days are coming by and by. And once we work together as a people in a cohesive way, not looking now at politics or color or class or creed or whatever the difference is, but once we come together and we work and we focus on our most vulnerable in this society, because they are the ones that will suffer most, and put policies, plans, and programs in place for them and try to work them through, I am positive that Barbados will turn around the corner, and that we will be able as a people to say how thankful we are to be living in this time when we can turn Barbados around and we can make a tremendous difference in the lives of all Barbadians and those who are among us. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank you sincerely for all that we have been able to do in the past, over the past 3 and almost 4 years, and what these budgetary proposals will help to guide us through, that we can achieve, not for us as politicians, because we are ordinary citizens, but for the people of Barbados, and the synergies that we will have with the people in the region to be able to make a difference in the lives of our various populations. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I wish to thank you sincerely for the privilege.
You're welcome. Honourable Member for St. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As I rise this morning, I can't help but think that I'm starting back over. In fact, I was told just this morning that I was caught on television just staring at the roof and was asked why. But the fact of the matter is that I was admiring the architecture of this place. At the same time, I was playing in my mind something that I've been doing now for the past 20 years or so, where I count and take note of the places that a 20-year-old or 25-year-old Ramel Springer will have never imagined that I will go, even in my wildest dreams. And this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is one such place. So for that, I am very thankful and grateful to the good people of St. Andrew, the people who have reposed their confidence to me and who have given me this responsibility to come here and speak on their behalf. It really is an honor. As I sat here and I listened to the budgetary proposal given by the Prime Minister on Monday, and even as she was speaking, I was thinking of some of the things that persons were discussing prior to her presentation. They were asking for things. There were people who were saying that there are things that should be in. There are things that she should certainly touch. And my estimation of that presentation was that it was a fair and it was a balanced presentation. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we have endured We have endured a lot. We have been a resilient people. We have been through economic downturn. We've been through a pandemic. We're still going through it. We've been through ashfall. We've been through a freak storm. And we've been through a hurricane. And for those of us who reside in the north of this country, we have been through prolonged water outages. And now, we're even faced with the adverse effect of a war that is ongoing in Eastern Europe. But yet, our people continue to show great strength and sacrifice. In the midst of all of this, we as a government, we have kept the people safe. And that's why I am proud to be part of this administration, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This budget that we're discussing here this afternoon is not a lazy response to the circumstances that we find ourselves in today, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is responsive, reflexive. It's a budget that is grounded in empathy, understanding, ability to read the temperature of the room, so to speak. It understands the struggles of our people. I think that's the spirit that this budget was drafted in, a clear understanding of the issues, the big issues and the small issues that are faced by our people. And that is why I want to just pull out certain aspects of this budget and just speak to those aspects. Some of them were alluded to this morning by the Honourable Member for St. Thomas, because I know she has an understanding and an appreciation for certain vulnerable groups in this country. And I speak of those persons, the elderly, and the other vulnerable group, the females in this country. And more specifically, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I almost said Mr. President. I speak of that announcement of a zero rating on taxes on essential goods, on personal hygiene items, things that impact, as was earlier said by the member for St. Thomas, the young, the very young, and the old. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the elderly within our society are the backbone of our society. They are the pillars of our society. They're the ones, according to the member for St. Michael West, they're the ones on whose shoulders we all stand. They're the ones with the experience, the knowledge. They're the ones who would have built this community that we all enjoy. Yet, when I stood up in this place or the other place and I heard of the way that some of the elderly in our society are being treated, when I heard of the elder abuse, when I heard of the elder abandonment, I was horrified. I was horrified because that is not our culture. We have derived from a people who revere and respect our elders. But yet, for some reason, there are persons within this country who do not see it fit to pay homage, to give these people the respect that they are due to them for the work that they've put in this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But this proposal in some small way makes it easier for for those elderly persons, and for those persons who are responsible for caretaking, taking care of the elderly. Because it makes those diapers, because there's a saying that once a man, twice a child. If we all live long enough, something will happen to us. That's what my stepmother would always say to me growing up as a child. If you live long enough, something will happen to you. And you may find yourself in a position where you're no better than a small child, and someone will have to take care of you, may have to wear a diaper, use a bed pad. You know, these are the things that many of our elderly are faced with every day. And there's a cost to them. They are expensive. Any one of you or anyone can tell you that it's very expensive to have to buy these things on a regular basis for your elderly parents, your elderly relatives. There's a cost to it. So now having to, this reduction of VAT on it makes it a lot easier for those persons now that exist in a life of dignity, to live a life of dignity. So I would agree with the honourable member that that was a boss move, because it's a move that impacts people in a personal way, in a very personal way. And a lot of people, because we have a large aging population here in Barbados. We have that. So kudos to the honourable member, to the Prime Minister, for that. Also, another group of vulnerable persons that were impacted are those single mothers, those single parents, I should say, with small babies. And those of us who have small children can tell you that having to deal with a small child is an expensive undertaking. It's hard. I sometimes wonder how some parents who are unemployed, sometimes the mother is unemployed and the father is unemployed, how they can manage to care, to raise a small child. When you have a child going through a whole pack of Pampers, sometimes in 2-3 days. And if the child is sick, oh Lord, it's even worse. How do you manage? I say Pampers, I mean diapers, and diapers are expensive. They've always been. I have not had any reason to purchase any in 15 years, but even then, they were expensive. I imagine that they continue to be expensive now. But now, because of this move, they are just a little bit cheaper and a little bit more affordable. And we have situations in this country, Mr. Deputy Speaker, where mothers have to make a choice sometimes between food and diapers. And as a result, they have to resort to we call them those cloth diapers that we had as children, reusable ones. I've not seen them in a long time. I heard that they're making a comeback now for all kinds of reasons, but the reason that many of these parents have to resort to these is simply because they just don't have the money to buy the disposable diapers. That is the reality out there. They have to borrow and beg and ask relatives, ask their girlfriends. This is the reality, because these things are just too expensive. Just too expensive, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So, as I said, I commend it. And I could break it down even further, because many of those parents, they have also to use the feminine towels and such like, the tampons. I can tell you as a teacher, when I was a teacher, we had situations where children came to school without these things. They had to ask their teachers. They had to ask their friends. either because the parents did not have enough money to supply them, or maybe they didn't value the importance of them. Some countries, girls have to stay home during the menstrual period. They have to stay home. Can't go into school because they have no resources to get the things that they need. Here, I will call her name. I spoke to her outside and she said it's okay. The Honourable Senator in the other place, Dr. Crystal Haynes, I applaud her for her initiative, her Lady Box initiative, where they're installing in schools these booths that girls can access these items. It's important. Girls can function. It's not only about hygiene. It's not only about health. It's about dignity. Dignity for these young ladies who are just navigating the physical being. I applaud her. And I would like to see someday that there's a stall or a booth or a station, whatever they choose to refer to it, in every single secondary school and perhaps in the primary schools. Because I understand that sometimes the cycle starts as early as 10 and 11 years old. That we will have something like that in every single school in this country. So that a child will not have to go through the indignity. A young female in Barbados in 2022 would not have to go through the indignity of having to go and beg a female teacher or a friend.
Honourable member, I don't need to interrupt you. Honourable member for St. James North, you're not allowed to wear those headphones in the house. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you, member. You can continue.
Proceed. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I was making the point that I would want to see that an initiative like that repeat itself in every single school. Every single school. Because of the indignity of having to ask, having to beg, and having to sit in the classroom and cry after you have had an incident. All these things we see in our schools every single day, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So I applaud the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East for this boss move, as it was referred to in here this morning. It's indeed a boss move. Equally, the removal of VAT on health drinks. Now, I'm not an expert on health drinks. I know that when I had sick relatives in my household, the only thing that they could use at the time was Ensure. That I'm aware of. I saw persons who, after recovering from a surgery or what have you, and could hardly eat solid food, survive on Ensure alone. So I know they have value. I know that they serve a purpose, and they're part of a person's recovery process for a number of various ailments. Some will say they're sweet. Maybe they are. But I know a lot of people can credit their health and their recovery to the availability of those health drinks like Ensure and Glycerma and all the others that have been listed on that list of zero-rated items. So it's not only a situation where we are assisting persons in terms of their dignity, we also have a serious concern for their health. So zero rating on health drinks But being conscious of the culture in Barbados, the imposition of a 20% or 10% increase by 10% or 100%, a 10% tax on sugar-sweetened beverages. Sugar-sweetened beverages. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the evidence is there for all to see that we have had an increase of obesity in this country. In fact, obesity is referred to as a pandemic, almost as a pandemic. Yes, and in fact, studies have shown that 1 in every 3 young children are obese. And it's a cost to being obese in this country. I think it's somewhere, being obese and the associated health challenges that persons who are obese may face, the diabetes and all such like, the hypertension, the amputation. We're the amputation capital of the region, I'm told, of the world maybe, of the world. I stand corrected, of the world. I was hoping it was just the region. But it's the world. And perhaps we have maybe the highest death rate as it relates to non-communicable diseases. We have that. We have those sad distinctions. So this tax, though may not seem consequential by some, but for those who are struggling with weight, those who are struggling with obesity, it makes it just a little bit more difficult for them to obtain those things that they crave. But I'm aware, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that this is going to take not just a piece of legislation, it's going to take a whole of government, perhaps a collaboration between all ministries and private sector, everyone involved, for this to happen, for this to be effective. Because we're talking behavioral change here. We're talking cultural change. When I was a teacher, and certainly when I worked in the Ministry of Education, we worked closely with the Heart and Stroke Foundation to encourage healthier foods in our schools. Principals would have introduced the Water Wednesdays and the Fruit Fridays as in an effort to encourage small children to eat and drink more healthy. Because many of the diseases, the non-communicable diseases that are manifested in adults have their genesis in their childhood, days, when they were children. And we would have lost 2 years to COVID. We would have lost 2 years where children were forced to stay inside, to stay inactive. And chances are that many of those children have become overweight as a result of inactivity. So now we have even a more serious challenge in our hands going forward. So perhaps we may have to revisit this task and maybe increase it, because we have to discourage robustly the use of sugar-sweetened beverages in this country. We have to, if we want to save our children, if we want to save our future, we have to do something about it. It's imperative. It is an imperative of this government, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But this is a one step. But it's going to take all of us to change that mindset. It is indeed a boss move, and it understands the dynamics of this country. As I said before, we have a prime minister, we have a government who knows how to read the temperature of a room. And that's why most persons are happy with this budget. Most persons. In fact, I listened to some persons on the radio just in passing, and they could not find anything really to criticize in this budget because there's something there for everybody. You can see that this government has the best interests and the health of people of this country at heart. It's clear. It's clear in their actions. They barely touch on one aspect.
Honourable
One
member,
aspect.
You have 5 more minutes.
Imagine that. I was just about to slip into second gear. But let me just turn my attention quickly to some of the infrastructural development that is going to be undertaken by this government this year. Developments that will occur especially in the north of Barbados and the Scotland district. It would be seriously remiss of me if I did not speak to works that will be done in the Scotland district in the coming months. As an outsider, I sat with speculation as to when or if it will start, but as an insider, I know that a lot of effort is being made, a lot of work is being done behind the scenes to ensure that the people of St. Andrew and St. Joseph and St. John, St. Thomas and St. Lucy will see some relief. We'll see the rehabilitation of roads in Coggins, in Moose Bottom, in White Hill, in King Garden, in Vaucluse. These are things that all are on the card. And the thing is, there's a nexus, there's a link between the improvement, the rehabilitation of this infrastructure and the economy, especially as it relates to tourism. Because if we can create easier movement of persons to that part of Barbados, the most beautiful part of Barbados, I might add, and it's not the honourable member for St. Andrew saying so. The Prime Minister said it herself, and countless thousands of Barbadians have agreed that St. Andrews perhaps, and the Scotland district, is perhaps the most beautiful example, best example of the pristine beauty that characterizes Barbados. It's a fact, speaking facts here. But we cannot exploit that beauty if tour buses and tourists refuse to go down there because the roads are horrible. We cannot exploit that beauty when the average citizen in White Hill and Coggins Hill can drive their car to their home and to their workplace and back without having to change the roddings and the rackings and the shocks and everything every month. We can't. That's why I'm happy to be not only part of a government, but part of a ministry that will see that those roads are repaired and the good people of the north, the good people of St. Andrew, the good people of St. Joseph, good people of St. John and St. Thomas have proper roads like everybody else in Barbados. And in my last minute and a half that the Deputy Speaker has just given me through facial communication, I want to speak to the water woes in the north, the far north. I had the opportunity to visit that area with the Deputy Prime Minister. It was an eye-opening experience. For us, where I live, water outages are most of our life. We've come up with water outages. Mainly in the summer, in the crop season, we would have a few water outages, yeah? But nothing compared to what I experienced and what I've seen and what I've heard people describe to me when I traveled to St. Lucie. Nothing. And that's why this government is investing in a strategic main lane program that will see in the next few years the removal of those old mains that are in some cases 100 years old, and in some cases are rusted. of those old means are replaced with new means to ensure that the good people in that part of Barbados, in Boscobel and Round the Rock, in Crab Hill and all those places, have access to high quality, good quality drinking water. These things are already on the cards. I know the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East would speak with more detail to it. I don't have the time to get into any details, but I can assure the good people in that part of Barbados that we are working and working hard to ensure that they enjoy a better quality of life. So, as I conclude, I just want to say that this government has shown over and over that it cares about Barbados. Its response, its actions, its gesture, its posture is one that is people-centered. And as long as we, as a government, as a people, can work together, we can harbor any storm, we can survive anything, whether it be pandemic, whether it be war. We, as a strong Barbadian people, can get through it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. James North.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I want to join with the earlier members, especially the Honourable Prime Minister, who would have welcomed our return to this building after 2 years, and to thank those who facilitated our stay in Worthing during that period. It's great to be home. Rise in support of these budgetary proposals and financial statements. They represent a comprehensive analysis and thought process of the socio-economic and health position of Barbados right now. And I commend the Honourable Prime Minister for the content of the statement. I know the difficulty. It must be difficult for Minister of Finance of Barbados in this, the most challenging socio-economic and health situation which has confronted this country, certainly within our lifetime and most likely over the last 100 years. And the different perspectives that would have informed her decisions. We one previous Prime Minister and President, now deceased, of a fellow CARICOM sister country, once said that economists were difficult people to understand because they say on the one hand this and on the one hand that, on the one hand this and on the one hand that. And he prayed to the Lord, he said, for one-handed economists. It's not easy to deal and to come to a situation which is in the best interest of everyone or society as a whole, but budgetary proposals, more so than any other law, has to be used as a tool for social engineering, as Roscoe Pound would have said. And this is a commendable effort to deal with our situation right now. So we have the capping on petroleum and diesel tax immediately with a direct benefit to the consumers of this country, and this is something that all of us as members of Parliament would have certainly been urged by our respective constituents to support. Capping of cost of freight for purposes of calculating customs duties for a 12-month period. And this as well, of course, because of rising freight costs, as we know, with the advent of COVID, freight costs going up, 400%, and therefore the capping by this government of its revenue from customs duties by freight is commendable and again would result to the direct benefit of consumers. The zero rating of personal items, personal care items, of course, which the Honourable Member for St. Andrew, in fact, just spoke about, such as sanitary towels and tampons, baby and adult diapers. And these are fundamental aspects, of course, especially towards female care, as we know. And these are expensive commodities. I certainly know, as father of 2 children, how much, and that was a long time ago, how much baby diapers cost. I know now, because of granddaughter that I have, the expense to her parents on baby diapers. I, of course, know, as someone who is close to the people with disabilities, how much adult diapers cost and the difficulty sometimes in accessing them. And sometimes it's just a case where I suppose a member of parliament has to bear the cost of some of these, and if the welfare department is unable to, and of course the antiperspirants and the vitamins, multivitamins, all of these are now doing away with the tax element for the benefit of people and shows a government that cares. The aspects of zero rating items which serve tremendously in the fight against non-communicable diseases, such as the gluconil and the Ensure, is visionary, something that is needed, and concomitant with that, of course, the increase by 100% in taxes on sweet drinks has to go along with such an element as well. I commend as well the reduction, discounted water rate for small farmers, and I know the Honourable Minister of Agriculture would have spoken on that aspect and on other aspects of agricultural and food security policies, and this is extremely important in a case where certainly if we did not know before, the last 2 years have shown more than ever with COVID and ashfall and now a war in Europe, that we have to become more dependent on ourselves and more independent of other countries in terms of our food intake and our ability to grow food. And of course, the budget speaks in a thorough manner on that aspect, the development of our agriculture, and in partnership with at least 2 of our sister CARICOM countries, Guyana and Suriname. And this has to be done because we don't live in a vacuum. We don't live by ourselves on just our 166 square mile rock. And anything to make more secure our food supply for our people and to cut down on our costs of importation of food, which I believe is around $700 million a year. Now, sir, the latest figure that I saw has to be promoted and supported. The reality, sir, is that COVID has dealt us an extremely serious blow over the last 2 years. Prime Minister, the Honourable Prime Minister would have told this House and through this House the people of Barbados that COVID cost $1 billion, sir. 1 and 9 zeros. And that is a tremendous amount of money, over $390 million in increased health and welfare costs, over $600 million in lost revenue through tourism and other aspects, lack of tourism and other aspects over the last 2 years. National insurance scheme, of which these financial statements spoke as well, having to bear the cost of over $150 million in unemployment benefits and severance payments and other new benefits that were introduced by this Parliament, sir. It has been a tremendous burden. But our constituents still demand, as you know, sir, very well, that we deliver on roads, on street lights, on improved housing, on supplying tablets to their children, and on other aspects where the reality of the aspect of people still living below a poverty line in Barbados still prevails, and of course horrendously revealed over the last 2 years. So this government, sir, and of course the Honourable Prime Minister said again, and I was again happy to hear it, because again I think for the second time post the election 2 months ago, the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East has said it, that we will hold the 3,600 odd new employees that this government has employed over the last 2 years as a direct result of COVID and as a direct result of obviously the private sector having to lay off people, make people redundant because of the adverse effects of COVID, and that we have committed to keeping these employees, COVID-related employment, as I call it, sir, in their jobs until they can transition to the private sector. And that is why it is extremely important, sir, for the construction projects that have been again revealed in the financial statements by the Honourable Prime Minister to get off the ground during the next financial year. My fear on that, sir, is that we do not have enough skilled and trained people in our country to undertake these jobs, sir. I mean, there are going to be thousands of jobs based on these construction projects. But, I mean, I know that COVID over the last 2 years set us back in every aspect of society and economy, but we have to find a way now to fast-track skills training of our people and the people who live in Barbados to avail themselves of this employment. And this is what I've been telling my constituents every time I go out into my constituency. So the Construction Gateway program of an 8 to 12 weeks training program for persons in carpentry and masonry and tiling, plumbing, sir, is extremely important. And I can only urge the Ministry of Technology and Vocation to have that on board as quickly as possible. A lot of our people have the basic skill maybe and the acumen, but they need further training to be able to become better quality artisans. And of course, sir, the Youth Advanced Corps program, which again the Honourable Prime Minister spoke about expanding and the facilities and improving them and training the participants is very important. Again, something, of course, that we started pre-COVID under the Ministry of Community Development. The then Minister, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central, but we need to get that going again, because we have to find a way to have a cadre of persons who are skilled, and not only in the technical skills, but also in terms of the soft skills, the life skills, the discipline, which the Youth Advanced Corps offers the opportunity for the young people of Barbados to avail themselves in. So the times present a unique opportunity for Barbados to expand our skills training in this country among our youth. And of course, when the Ministry of Education, Science, Technology was in the well believe we're in the Ministry of Community Development as well. A common refrain was the fact that we need to provide more opportunities for our young persons having left secondary school without certification and skills, of which there are still too many and needs to be reduced immediately, sir. That we need to provide greater opportunities for them, because look, everybody deserves a second chance in life, not because you have left school without any certification. And I know the Ministry of Education is setting out a plan to address that, but not because you leave school without any certification does it mean that the state does not have an obligation to give you a second chance in life. And I mean a situation of which we heard, sir, and of which I knew because I keep a check on these things, where there are generally about 300 people who apply for courses in skills training, but they only have provision for about 16, sir. What, 5%? Can't work, can't go in this system where we're looking to transform this society. And we need more space, we need more resources into that area and aspect of our society, sir, to give our people a chance, because, I mean, after all, it's people that matter, sir. And if we have a group of young people who are unskilled still, and who are not able to advance in this country and not able to build this country in terms of their own potential and talent, we are in problems. And I look forward, sir, to that being done within the next financial year. Connected with this is the whole aspect of educational and technical vocational reform, which is so needed in this country. And I was happy, of course, to hear the Honourable Minister for Education, Member of Parliament for St. Philip West, speak about it, she and her team last week, when we were still at Worthing, sir, on this issue, because this is an aspect that is seriously needed. We have to create situations within our educational system whereby our young people can be given the opportunity to fulfill their potential, sir. And that means obviously identifying early o'clock what their potential is, what may be the hindrances to the fulfillment of that potential, and therefore the issues of checking for possible dyslexia or visual or hearing defects from age 4, sir, which used to be done when we were last in office, has to be restarted again. The issue, sir, of welfare reform, of course, is extremely important to the fundamentals of our society as well. This government over the last 2 years has again revealed in the presentation by the Honourable Prime Minister, spent $77 million to protect families from the COVID pandemic and climate crisis, including $31 million to the Welfare Department and over $20 million in $600 monthly grants to households without any income. I know the Honourable Member for St. Thomas has to be commended for leading that drive, sir, but we have to move on from there, sir, to now have a platform where people are not found in so many numbers, or so many families are not found in that position, and where they can better withstand the next health pandemic or the continuing climate change crisis which confronts us, and of which the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East speaks about so eloquently whenever she addresses overseas audiences. We have to find a way to stop this intergenerational
poverty and reliance on welfare, sir, by buttressing now our young people, especially our young women, sir, and to help them realize that there are other ways in life to gain an income, but they have to be helped, sir. It's not going to come by happen chance. I, for one, sir, Dubai Park within my own constituency, sir, having put off, obviously, because of COVID and increases in COVID, having looked to start the program last September now, set to start it come hell or high water, God willing, sir, in May, Life and Work Skills program, which is replicated in many government departments. I think the Ministry of Labour, sir, has similar programs give, as I said, soft skills to people and training in civics and in teamwork and life skills, critical thinking and problem resolution. Those issues where maybe our educational or formal educational system has not catered adequately to our young people. And the Young Mothers Program, sir, my intention to start that as well. Young Mothers Empowerment Program within my constituency after the Life and Work Skills Program. And it's a program that I saw when looking through the Ministry of Community Development and Youth. They have a budget for a similar program. I know the Ministry of Labour was also hoping to have that program that had been conceptualized, but I believe budgetary constraints may prevent it. And I have urged the two ministers of those ministries to come together and see what they can do, because government is about synergies, as we know so well especially from the last 2 years. So, sir, these financial statements represent an extremely good attempt to demonstrate a vision for Barbados as we go forward towards the end of this decade. But I accept, sir, that there are constraints which have to be overcome. And I listened very carefully to the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central this morning and agreed with her in a lot of her remarks in terms of the implementation of proposals. Get help when we in office, sir. I agree, sir, and I commend the Ministry of Public Works for tackling drainage issues in the constituency, sir, in Shine Hill and in Western and part of Trent, although the other part of Trent has to be done, and also in Clark's Road in the Wim. But there are other areas that need to be done. A sports facility in Western, mini stadium as I would call it, I look forward to that being done this next financial year. Refurbishment to the Western Fish Market, sir, which the Honourable Senior Minister for Christchurch West has informed me just got town planning permission for the go-ahead, I think last week, Friday. Decision has to be made on the old fire station, but housing, sir, is of course a bugbear. And St. James North, of course, does not have any housing areas, and because of the configuration and Zone 1 restrictions, sir, which I look forward to the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister bringing legislation to Parliament soon to regulate and to take some of the areas out of Zone 1, sir. Because of that, there aren't any state areas, government-owned areas for housing, and therefore I look forward, sir, to people of St. James North being given the opportunity for allocation and acquisition of houses by the state and by Hope Inc., sir, in Lancaster, for instance. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, on the issue of people with disabilities, sir, and again, the Honourable Prime Minister has again spoken of the intention of the Cabinet of Barbados to establish a Disabilities Commission, sir. This is long overdue. In fact, as we speak, sir, and I was trying to join in, sir, as we speak, there's a national consultation on disabilities going on in Barbados, and that's what I was trying to access. We need to implement policies for people with disabilities. Almost to the day, sir, 7 years ago, I laid in this Parliament, 17th of March 2015, a resolution calling for legislation to improve the quality of life of people with disabilities, specific disabilities legislation. Hasn't been done yet, sir. We don't even have a policy. So I look forward to the Cabinet agreeing to give resources now for the implementation of such a policy and to commit to the legislation so that people with disabilities can, like everyone else, be able to fulfill their potential and take advantage of the training and entrepreneurial and educational opportunities that this government is bringing. We have to have an inclusive society for all. And, sir, as I said, I support these proposals and statements, and I look forward, sir, to the proper implementation of them by those responsible for implementing them. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Philip West.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. You know, as I bring the voice of the people of St. Philip West to this debate on the appropriation bill and the budget presentation by our very forward-thinking leader and astute Prime Minister, I do so with gratitude for the privilege that my constituents in St. Philip West have given me to represent them. And I do so also, sir, with appreciation for the gravity of the moment in which we stand as a country. Now, we stand in a moment, sir, where resilience must mean more to Barbados than bouncing back to the way things were before March 2020 when the global health pandemic impacted our country. Resilience must mean springing forward with courage to face a future that we, like the rest of the world, are still trying to figure out what's coming at us. We stand in a moment, sir, when empowerment must mean more to Barbados than people feeling emboldened with the power to do for themselves. Empowerment, sir, must mean that we are consumed with a commitment to deliver for each other and to make a way, make a path for all who will come behind us. Mr. Speaker, we stand in a moment of uncertainty about what will happen next to the world beyond our control that can adversely impact the lives and the livelihoods of Barbadians and indeed the people of St. Philip West. But we cannot allow uncertainty, sir, to take us under. We must navigate the current. And if I may borrow from Brutus in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, he said, "We must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures." I rise, sir, in support of the measures proposed in the budget presented by our Prime Minister just 2 days ago because it speaks to how we will take the current. Be it volatile oil prices, be it war, be it unpredictable climate change, be it grain shortage, be it disease. It speaks to resilience, sir. This budget speaks to resilience, resilience of people, not only of our economy as we strive for growth, or of our physical infrastructure, or of our water resources, or of our digitally powered systems, This budget puts everyday concerns of people up front and center. And here's what I mean, sir. Because of this budget and the work that this government has done to bring it to the people of Barbados, when the family from Emerald Park West asks, how will I get to work and how will I get my children to school with gasoline prices playing the fool, I can say to them, we can't stop it, but we have given you some ease with the VAT at the pump for gasoline and diesel, effective, I believe, today, so that should help. As of midnight tonight, I am being told by the honorable member, sir, and when Donna from the household in Sunbury Tenantry asks how she will afford diapers for her child and sanitary products for her teenager and additional protective sanitary products for her elderly parents, I am able to say to her, I can't give you all, but with the ease on the VAT on personal sanitary products and other critical care products, you will be able to do better by your babies and by your teenager and by your parents. And when Nigel, sir, who is the small business man who runs a micro business up in Breezy Hill, when he asked me about replacing his near derelict car that is on the road just by virtue of divine presence, I can say to him, sir, that if after April you choose to buy another car, you are able to do so with the ease that this government has now given you, where you only pay 10% import duty. Sir. So, sir, this is indeed a budget that puts the everyday concerns of the people of St. Philip West and of Barbados at the forefront. There is much more too. And, sir, this budget speaks to empowerment, of advancing the effort in renewable energy to deliver for everyone. Energy and people are like oxygen and water to development. And regenerative energy from the very sun that comes out every day requires devices that capture this valuable solar power. And making the devices and the equipment affordable and accessible for the people of this country is an important way for us to go as we implement our new energy policy. And I encourage the people of St. Philip West to see that it is not for large-scale enterprises alone, but it is indeed for everyone. We want to touch every single household. And I refer, sir, to recently, just last year, I believe it was, when with the Honourable Member for St. Thomas and the Honourable Member for St. Peter, we walked the streets and the area of Rock Hall just near the airport, speaking with people who were to be relocated from that location. Most of those houses that we found were already plugged into solar, because many of them could not get legitimately and officially connections from the Barbados Light and Power and other utilities. They have found innovative ways, and most of those houses, I dare say, without any scientific proof, but certainly from my own observations, well clear of 70% of those houses were already wired by solar. And so I am saying to the people of St. Philip West and the people of Barbados, this is not outside of our reach. In many pockets of this country, we have already started to see the change that we are seeking to bring about in Barbados as it relates to energy and renewable energy. But, sir, as we talk about empowerment, our empowerment ambition must be to empower through education. And it is in this connection, sir, that I want to speak about two aspects of that empowerment through education. You would have heard the Honourable Prime Minister in her presentation in her budget presentation 2 days ago, she would have mentioned the construction gateway. So that is one of the aspects of empowerment through education that I really wish to share today in the short time that I have. And additionally, to speak just a little bit about education reform and how we want to make that more empowering as well. The Construction Gateway project, which is promised by this Barbados Labour Party government in our manifesto, and which we are now seeking to move with speed to bring to the landscape of Barbados, it really links education, it links training to economic activity. It links learning to livelihoods, how to apply learning to finance your lives in a very short period of time. And one of the things this project is seeking to do is to shorten, accelerate the training and allow people to take a shorter period of time to leap from training to financing their lives, whether it is through a job or it is through their own business. This is part of government's effort to upskill the population, to train artisans or tradesmen, and to ensure a new core of both male and female workers to make sure that they are available in all of the various construction jobs that will be required as Barbados moves into this bounty of construction, which you have heard both the Prime Minister as well as other honourable members in this chamber refer to. Several training institutions in Barbados are coming together to make the construction gateway happen. The Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology, the Barbados Community College, the Barbados Vocational Training Board, the Technical and Vocational Education and Training Council, TVET. They will all be coming together to put together close to 19 programs that with which we will start to be able to launch the construction gateway. There are three aspects of the construction gateway: training, job attachments, and the leasing or acquisition of tools for those who successfully graduate. The training courses will be 8 to 12 weeks in duration. They will be delivered in modules with special clusters of skills that are required. We are packaging certain skill sets together to ensure that those successful trainees are competent in a set of skills that are relevant and needed right now in the construction industry. The job attachments is a vital component of the workforce training program in the provision of work experience and job attachments for our trainees from the Construction Gateway project. The training institutions that I mentioned earlier, in partnership with the Barbados Employment Career Counseling Services, will coordinate the job attachments and the post-training career development of our trainees. And when it comes to the leasing or the acquisition of tools, a special regime will be put in place to make it affordable for those trainees who need to come out and have the tools of the trade ready to really make the training work for them. Sir, there will be certification. You would have heard another areas of training will be certified, either at the Caribbean Vocational Qualification level, CVQ, or at the National Vocational Qualification level, which is triple. And this means that where CVQs are given, it allows our trainees to work anywhere in the Caribbean. And so we are creating workers not only for Barbados, but to feed the region and elsewhere as they move. Number of the training modules, the establishment of a range of skills training modules will be done, as I mentioned, in cluster. They will all be competency-based. It will be a unit certificate. So, for example, if you cannot complete the entire range of the training, for every unit that you complete, you will be certified. And so you will be walking out of there with something that you have to show for the training you have given. And sir, if I have your permission, I would wish to share some of the areas. May not do all 19, but I will list a couple of the areas: air conditioning and installation, backhoe operations, boxing and foundation laying, bricklaying and plastering, construction supervision, drywall installation, electrical assistant and installers, foundation laying, joinery and cupboard construction. And sir, you will know that we have a significant shortage of joiners in Barbados, to the point that even now there are companies applying for joiners to come into Barbados. We have such a shortage at this point in time. Metal stud framework erection, painting, taping and pasting, photovoltaic installation. The collaboration between a number of our technical institutions, including the Barbados Community College, will be a part of that to boost our capacity to be able to deliver on that front. Plumbing, skid steer, loader operation, steel bending, textured wall clothing, tiling, welding, among those that we will indeed be offering. And I share these, sir, because it was meant to trigger the interest of those persons who may very well find themselves interested in these areas of training. And sir, you would be happy to know that there is no real age limit. Persons anywhere from 18 to 65 can choose to enroll in the construction gateway. We recognize that there are persons who will have an interest and no training. There are persons who would have had some training at some point in time, but no experience. There are persons who will have some knowledge, but no experience or training. But so really and truly, it is there and open to those who have an interest in developing that skill and accelerating their career in the areas of trades. Sir, we expect that our output would be that by March 2023, close to 3,000 new artisans will have been trained to various levels. Because each of those areas that I mentioned, sir, has a different level certificate that is very specific to the type of training that is being delivered. And sir, it is expected that as part of that program, we will also pay them to learn. And so there will be a stipend that will be given. You will not get rich on it, but it will be enough to give you breakfast and a little bit of food and bus fare to get to and from, until such time as you're able to convert that skill into a way to finance your life. And so, sir, the construction gateway is on its way. We expect that once Cabinet does its final review and approves the final going forward, we should be able to launch within the next couple of weeks. And so we say, Barbados, get ready. I want to also thank the persons of the private sector who have collaborated with us in identifying what are those specific areas we need to focus on now that matches the demand that they have, so that there'll be some immediacy in terms of opportunities at this point in time. Sir, the second area that I had indicated I would speak about only as we talk about empowerment through education was that of education reform. Sir, that is a very large discussion, and I would not, sir, even try to attempt to have it all right here. But I do know that many persons with whom I have spoken seem to believe that education reform is simply about changing the 11 plus, or the common entrance, or the secondary certificate, by whatever name we call it. But the truth is, education reform is much, much broader than that. One of the things that we have recognized in the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training is certainly that there are multiple intelligences. There are those that you will know who are really good with their hands. They are body smart. There are those who are athletic, also body smart. There are those who are very good with music. They're musically smart. There are those who are picture smart. There are, when it comes to visual and spatial, they are excellent at those kinds of things. And sir, there are multiple other intelligences. However, the system which we currently have does not recognize multiple intelligences, and it does not cater for all of those young people we have within our systems who may not necessarily fit the traditional mold of what we consider to be bright children. We have to move in this reform, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to a state where it is not just an education system that we talk about with nostalgia that has withstood the test of time. We also need to move to this state where our education system can withstand the current of the future. We expect education, sir, to go through major changes in Barbados, just as it is the world over. Trends that we may not necessarily be able to ignore, for example, sir, is as we look at the future of jobs. There was a report done by the World Economic Forum on the future of jobs, which said that those students who entered school in the year 2016, 65% of those students will come out and work in jobs which did not exist at the time they entered. We are therefore preparing our children for a world that is still evolving. And therefore, sir, there are traditionally valued skills of repetition and memorization and pattern prediction that seem to have been part of our old traditionally valued system. However, we're recognizing that if we are creating a student who is able to function in the emerging world, curiosity and creativity and critical thinking have to be part of that shift in the kinds of skills that we are valuing and inculcating in the curriculum of this country. Some of the trends too, sir, that we must pay attention to as we move into reform is the movement towards competency-based learning and a focus on skills. Another trend that we need to avail ourselves of, and we have experienced it right here in the last couple of years, is online learning. But now, as our children have gone back to face-to-face schools, it is important that we understand that all the gains we have had in online will not just be thrown away. It will not necessarily be a face-to-face or online. What we are seeing evolving around the world is not an either-or, but a both, and all the things that are about to evolve, whether it's in television, streaming, and other areas that we have not yet fully implemented. Also, globally, sir, we are recognizing that part of our reform must see us making the international connection, the global connections that are important. I give you the example, sir, of a teacher from St. Philip West, Miss Newton, who during the last few months created an online reading community for readers who were having challenges. She was proud to tell me 2 Saturdays ago when she visited me at the constituency office that she now has students in from Trinidad that are in her online reading course. This is part of the global connections in education that we have to make, where our local educators are already being resources outside of Barbados, just as others will continue to do so. And sir, reform is not just about what we teach, whether it's agriculture, whether it's civics, whether it's robotics, whether it's coding. Our reform also is about how we teach. And sir, with your permission, I'd like to mention the name of a teacher who teaches now, sir, at Milton Lynch Primary. He's a teacher by the name of Vaughn Everett Tatum, who has not only written books that will assist our young people in learning, but what he has done is he also has created an app. When he realized that some of the young men in his class, and other girls as well, were disengaged from what he was teaching, he created these comics. And they were blank, and he sent them out. And they filled in those comics and sent them back to him as a way of using language in an innovative way. And he is now looking to put further investment in this to be able to make this innovation in education. So when we are talking about education reform, it is not just about what we teach, it is also how we teach. It is how the teachers are employing new and interesting and exciting methods that excite the children, as well as how those children are being able to feedback and contribute to how education happens in their own lives.
You have 5 more minutes, ma'am.
Sir, as I get into the last 5 minutes you have given me, I want to share with you too, as we speak of education reform, one of the things we have to recognize is that since the school year 2014-2015, we have had a 22% drop nationally in the enrollment in school. What that means is Barbados had less persons enrolling in school. And when we look at what is also happening with our population, we are not reproducing at a fast rate. It says to us that there are less and less persons, certainly when we start calculating when these students will leave school. We are recognizing that with 22% less enrollment, we have taken a hit in our human capital and in our labor force coming forward. What is important, sir, therefore, is that whatever we do with reform must optimize those who are within the system and those who are able to engage through the multiple intelligences we seek to recognize. And sir, I say that some of the challenges we face, not only that 22% drop in enrollment nationally, while some parishes, like some parts of St. Philip and Christchurch, have increased, we have seen marked decreases in places like St. Lucie and some other parishes. And what I will say to you, we are also seeing an underperformance in some areas. We are seeing lower levels of certification, which we said we are going to address through other levels of certification. We are seeing a significant amount of male attrition, guys, boys dropping out of school and becoming disengaged, sir. And there's an absence of standards, whether it's for teaching or in other areas where we need to address. I share that, sir, simply to say that the reform that has to be done is bigger than just the common entrance exam, but it is looking at a whole range of the issues, both the opportunities we can now take up based on the trends in the world, but equally so, those challenges that we're facing as a country. Sir, on this note, I will close at this time as I see you eyeing me, telling me that my 5 minutes are up. But what I want to say, sir, is that the work that we are doing to build a more resilient Barbados as a government, to empower this country through many means, including education, is important and it is necessary work. And I'm pleased to be a part of a team in this room and elsewhere across the public service who is fully committed and ready to serve. I thank you, sir.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House for 1 hour until 2:30 p.m.
The question is that this sitting be suspended until 2:30 p.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. All against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. This House now stands suspended until 2:30 p.m.